Welcome to episode 5 of the design series, creating a custom computer case for a NAS with SOLIDWORKS xDesign. In this series, we're building a fully functional NAS, network attached storage, around existing PC components, and if you haven't caught up yet, you'll find links to previous episodes in the description below. In the last episode, we created a structure to hold hard drives securely. In this episode, we will first reinforce bottom bars that hold hard drives, then we will create some supports to fix the motherboard on the main structure. This is key for a robust assembly. So let's start with bottom bars. First, I need to make a new instance of this part, as it will be different from top bar. So a simple save as will do the trick. I add the mates to locate the part properly. I need to create holes in the bars to fix those panels, so I project panel holes. Holes are too close from the edge, so I add a boss that I center with middle points. I finish the shape with some fillets. And of course, I don't forget to cut the holes. Bottom bar is done, I can move to motherboard supports. I start with top bar, I project motherboard mounting holes, and let's be clear, this will be the easiest case. Holes are aligned with the bar. So I drill new holes aligned with mounting ones, and I will add some spacer columns to mount motherboard. I just create larger holes to accommodate threaded inserts, and design is done. Let's move to middle and bottom bars. Once I have projected hole locations, I realize this won't be the same. Holes are not aligned with the bars, so I need to create additional parts between these bars and the motherboard. This will be safer than creating very complex bars that would be too difficult to print in 3D. Let's focus on bottom bar first. This one is a mirror part of the top one, so I will leverage holes already made. I position sketch so they don't depend on the motherboard anymore. Remember, the less useless external references, the less risks for rebuild loops. Here the motherboard won't move, so I rather add dimensions. Then I can start creating mounting posts. They will be simple but strong enough to maintain the full computer assembly. They will be fixed on the bar at one side and on the motherboard on the other side. So I need to add material between bar and motherboard. It will be an extrusion with a hole to fix to the bar, and a boss with enough material around the mounting hole. Dimension between motherboard and bars is 5 mm. So 2.5 mm for extrusion thickness and 2.5 mm for the boss. Then I reinforce the part with a chamfer and I add some fillets, including this full round fillet to round the full tab in one operation. I add a general fillet and a last chamfer, and I make the mounting hole deeper to host the embedment nut properly. First mounting post is done, I reuse it on the next hole. A couple of simple mates and it's already in position and ready to use. Next one is tricky. It starts simple with a corner extrusion and a hole with a chamfer. So far so good. Once it's positioned correctly with mates, I start adding some material to link the extrusion to the mounting hole location. For that I create a sketch with a rounded boss, and link this boss with tangent arcs and lines. I add some fillets and see how fast and easy the shape is achieved. I add a rib with a chamfer feature to make the part stronger, and again I fill the 2.5 mm gap with a boss. I don't forget to project also internal edge to create the boss in only one extrusion. I finish up the part with some fillets and the bottom mounting posts are done. The motherboard can be secured, even if holes are not aligned with the bar. Now let's take care of the middle bar. I already created dimensions to get mounting holes location, so I can move directly to mounting post creation. This time shape will be even more simple because holes are in the same direction. I create 3 holes, 2 holes to fix the part on the bar, and 1 hole to fix the motherboard. I add an outer shape around them and add some tangent relations to have something nice and strong. Again, I create a 2.5 mm extrusion for the main body. I add mates to position the part correctly with mounting hole. This will help positioning holes on the bar. I continue with a boss of the remaining 2.5 mm to serve as a mounting hole for the motherboard. As always, I add fillets and chamfers, but I have to reduce size so it fits on the shape, even more when chamfer and fillets are overlapping. To position my parts, I will use a trick. I represent motherboard holes with surface extrusions, so I can add mates in 3D. There's only one last mounting post to create, and I will use the same technique as before. I represent holes in a sketch, and I add some material around them. I make sure these holes are aligned with other ones with dimensions and relations, and I create outer shape. As before, I create lines and tangent arcs without changing tools. This is very convenient, and I add an angle to build material only where it is really needed for part strength. Once sketch is finished, I create a 2.5mm extrusion and a 2.5mm boss for the mounting hole. I also finish up with some fillets, and middle bars has now all mounting holes aligned correctly to secure motherboard on the structure. As I created the mounting posts inside bars themselves, I changed their location so they are at the same level than the other parts. This will be helpful when I print parts separately. Very convenient when you are in the design phase and nothing is set in stone yet. Of course, this is the moment when I realize I completely forgot to drill holes in the middle bar. So I reuse part dimensions to locate holes, and I leverage all the references I have so I can place them correctly. To ease the work, I chose the same spacing for holes when I created mounting posts. This is important to keep same dimensions when you can. This prevents design errors you will discover when you create physical prototype. Here I changed last spacing to increase strength. Torque was more important because of the cantilever. Once holes are made, middle part is ready for threaded inserts. Now let's design spacer columns to finish up assembly. I will reuse the same for the 3 mounting holes. I start with the screw and I add the hexagonal column. I took dimensions on the actual part and I choose the 5mm height, since this is the value I took for all other mounting parts. There is a hole to mount motherboard and a chamfer to ease assembly. Now I made 3 of those columns to the assembly so the motherboard is correctly secured. I show mating for 2 parts only, but I won't believe you cannot do it by yourself now. The parts look like they are in brass, but I know they are rather in poor grade steel after I broke one of them. So I add a yellow-orange color to the part, and once it is applied I can see the result in the main assembly. Now I need to turn this design into reality, so it is printing time. Here we see bottom bars. Then I can finally mount the motherboard to the structure, and because I reused motherboard holes to define my geometry, all screws are aligned and 9 screws later, motherboard is securely fixed to the structure. Now the motherboard is fixed, in the next episode I will take care of fans at the back of the case, with holes for switch, network and power plugs, and venting holes for fans. Until then, you can connect on SOLIDWORKS for Maker's website to start designing with SOLIDWORKS xDesign for a very cheap annual price. Thanks for watching and see you in the next episode.